He shielded her from gunfire. Days later, her people returned with an offer no human expected. Garrett Shaw's world compressed to three things: the woman beneath him, concrete biting into his knees, and gunfire punching holes through steel lockers 6 inches from his head. "Stay down," he said. The alien scientist didn't argue. Her copper hair spread across the laboratory floor, and those fox-like ears lay flat against her skull. He could feel her breathing against his chest where he'd pinned her behind an overturned table. Another burst. The insurgents advanced through the corridor, systematic and professional. Garrett's tactical mind cataloged exits, while his body stayed locked over hers, making himself the larger target. "Service tunnel," she said. 40 meters, eastern wall. "We won't make it." "Then what do you suggest?" He liked that she didn't panic. Garrett shifted, reaching for the plasma cutter that had tumbled off the workbench. Not a weapon, but it would burn. "Can you run?" "Can you?" Fair question. Blood soaked his left sleeve where shrapnel had opened him shoulder to elbow. The pain was distant, something to deal with later. Garrett grabbed her wrist, slim, warm, softer than expected, on 3. He didn't wait for 3. They moved as one, his body between hers and the corridor as they sprinted for a storage alcove. Rounds sparked behind them. One burned past his ear. He shoved her into the alcove and followed, slamming against her in the narrow space. Her hands pressed his chest. Those green eyes, pupils blown wide, locked on his face. This close, he could see the pattern in her fur, the way her nostrils flared. She smelled like copper and something clean he couldn't name. "You're bleeding," she said. "I'm fine." "That's not what fine looks like." The wound was deeper than he'd thought. "We need to move before they flank us." "With that arm, you'll collapse. Then I'll crawl." Something shifted in her expression. Her tail, pressed between them, twitched against his leg. "Why?" "Why what?" "Why protect me? We're not even the same species." Garrett checked the corridor, 3 insurgents moving in formation. "Does it matter?" "Yes, among my people males they wouldn't." "Well, I'm not your people." He tested the plasma cutter's charge. Half full, enough for maybe 2 shots. "When I move, you go for the tunnel," he said. "Don't stop." Her hand closed around his wrist. "That's suicide." "That's the job." "I didn't hire you." "You didn't hire me at all. I was just doing maintenance." Garrett pulled free gently. "But you're getting out anyway." The first insurgent rounded the corner. Garrett didn't give him time. The plasma cutter took him across the chest. Garrett grabbed the fallen rifle, checked the magazine, 15 rounds, and found the scientist still there. "Tunnel? Not without." He kissed her, quick, hard, just pressure and heat. Mostly to shock her into moving, but partly because those eyes had been asking questions he couldn't answer mid-firefight. It worked. She stumbled back, ears straight up, tail rigid. Then she ran. Garrett stepped into the corridor and opened fire. 2 round bursts. The second insurgent went down. The third took cover and returned fire. 9 rounds left. Movement in his peripheral vision. 4th insurgent. Flanking, Garrett pivoted and fired, but the angle was wrong. The round sparked off a door frame. The insurgent's weapon came up. Something slammed into Garrett from behind. The scientist, back, insane, throwing her weight against him as the insurgent fired. They hit the floor together. Rounds passed overhead, pressure wake stirring his hair. He rolled, bringing the rifle around. Single shot, the insurgent dropped. "I told you to run," Garrett said. She was sprawled half across him. "Your tactical assessment was flawed." "My what?" "You assumed I'd abandon a valuable asset. Poor mathematics." But her hands shook where they gripped his vest, and her ears kept swiveling. More boots, multiple directions. Out of time, Garrett forced himself upright, pulling her with him. The world tilted but steadied. Tunnel. Final offer. This time she led. Through corridors marked with alien script he couldn't read. His vision tunneled at the edges, but he kept moving. The scientist glanced back every few meters. The service tunnel was exactly where she'd said. Small, dark, sloping down, pursuit close behind. He pushed her toward the entrance. "Go." "Not this again. Someone has to seal it." She turned on him, something wild in her eyes. "You've already bled enough for me." Haven't bled nearly enough. Garrett found the emergency release and gripped it. When you get clear, tell whoever's in charge the insurgents had military-grade weapons. This wasn't random. Tell them yourself. Her hand covered his. Among my people, when someone saves your life, you owe them a debt. Until paid, I'm bound to you. Then I release you. That's not how it works. The insurgents were in the corridor, flashlight beams cutting through smoke. It's how it works today. He pulled the release. The blast door started to descend, her eyes went wide. Then she lunged forward and kissed him back, fierce, desperate, hands fisted in his vest. She dropped into the tunnel, the door sealed between them. Garrett turned, 6 insurgents fanning out, 3 rounds left and an arm that barely functioned. The math wasn't good. Drop it, human. Garrett dropped the rifle. They came fast. Cable ties on his wrists, hood over his head. Someone kicked his injured arm, and the world went white. Who sent you? Nobody. Wrong place, wrong time. You protected the female, why? Seemed like the thing to do. Another kick, they hauled him up. Voices discussed him in a language he didn't speak. A weapon cocked near his head. Then the walls exploded inward. The concussion wave knocked Garrett flat. Through ringing ears and blurred vision, he saw armored figures pouring through. Sleek combat suits, humming weapons, all female, every single one. They cut through the insurgents in seconds. One knelt beside him. Through her helmet's faceplate, he saw copper fur and green eyes. You came back, Garrett said. I told you, Sivara said, hands already working to stop his bleeding. You're an asset. Poor mathematics to abandon you. Just an asset? Her tail curled around his wrist. We'll discuss the rest when you're not dying. The medics arrived. They worked with technology he didn't recognize, instruments that sealed wounds with light. Sivara stayed close, her hand always near his. As they loaded him onto a stretcher, Garrett caught her arm. Your name, I never asked. Sivara Kelahn. Garrett Shaw. I know. I pulled your file while running for my life. Something like a smile touched her mouth. You have terrible performance reviews. I don't play well with others. I noticed. They carried him toward extraction ships. Sivara walked beside the stretcher. One soldier, older with silver-shot fur, said something sharp. Sivara's ears flattened, but she responded without breaking stride. What was that? Garrett asked. She wants to know why I risked the team for one human male. What did you tell her? Sivara looked down at him. That you owed me a debt, that I was simply collecting. That the only reason? Her tail twitched. Ask me when you're not dying. The ship's medical bay was white surfaces and humming equipment. As the treatment pod sealed around him, Sivara stood at the viewport. Through the transparent cover, he could see her touching her lips where he'd kissed her, quick and distracted. A younger soldier approached, more of that language. Sivara's response was clipped. The younger soldier retreated. Making friends? Garrett asked. She wanted to know if human males were always so reckless. Only the good ones. The pod's drugs pulled Garrett under. His last conscious thought was of green eyes and soft fur, and the weight of a question. Why had she really come back? In the command center, Sivara stared at holographic displays. Her aide Vorana stood nearby, arms crossed. You touched him, Vorana said quietly. Multiple times the matriarch saw the footage. I was preventing asset loss. Your tail wrapped around him. Sivara's ears flattened. What's your point? The matriarch isn't calling to congratulate you. She's calling because you went back for him. Because in 30 years I've never seen you kiss anyone, especially not a male. Sivara turned from the display. Prepare the ship. We're returning to command. What about the human? He comes with us. The matriarch won't. The matriarch needs to hear what I have to say. Shaw is evidence. Evidence of what? Sivara thought of how he'd pushed her behind cover without hesitation, how he'd kissed her like it was both the first and last thing he'd ever do. 30 years believing males were incapable of genuine sacrifice. Evidence that we might be wrong about everything. Garrett woke to white ceiling panels and the low hum of medical equipment. His left arm felt strange, not painful, just different. He flexed his fingers. They worked, better than they had any right to. The door opened without sound. Sivara entered, no longer in combat armor. She wore something that looked military but formal. Fitted jacket in deep blue, high collar, silver insignia at her throat. Her copper hair was pulled back, revealing the full lines of her face and those expressive ears. She stopped at the foot of his bed. "You're awake." "How long?" 3 days. Garrett pushed himself upright. The room didn't spin. Whatever they'd given him worked better than anything human medicine had. "Where are we?" "My world, command installation, northern continent." Sivara moved to the viewport and gestured. "Look." He did. The view took his breath. The city spread below them in elegant curves, buildings that rose like sculptures rather than structures. Bridges arched between towers, too delicate to be functional, except they clearly were. Everything gleamed in sunlight that had a slightly amber quality, casting warm shadows across streets filled with movement. But something was off about the crowds, and it took Garrett a moment to place it. "All women," he said. "Yes. Where are the men?" "Working, building, serving in capacities appropriate to their nature." Sivara's tail moved in a slow arc. "This will be difficult for you to understand." "Try me." She turned from the window. "My species evolved differently than yours. Females are larger, stronger, more aggressive. We lead, we fight, we decide. Males are—" She paused, searching for words. "Necessary, but not for leadership, not for combat, not for sacrifice." "Sounds like you've got it all figured out." "We did. For 3,000 years, our society has functioned on this principle. Then you pushed me behind cover and took rounds meant for me." Her ears flattened slightly. "That's not supposed to happen." Garrett swung his legs off the bed. He wore loose pants and nothing else. Someone had cleaned him up, treated the scars. "Maybe your principles need updating." "That's what Matriarch Tazreen wants to discuss." "She in charge?" "Of everything that matters." Sivara crossed her arms. "She's granted you audience. It's an honor most humans never receive." "Should I be flattered or concerned?" "Both." The door opened again. 5 soldiers entered, all female, all armed, not pointing weapons at him, but ready. The one in front had silver-shot fur and eyes that had seen too many battles. Her insignia matched Sivara's, but with additional markings. "Commander Kelahn," she said, "step away from the human." Sivara didn't move. "He's stable, Varana, no threat." "That's not what I'm concerned about." Varana's gaze stayed on Garrett. "You, on your feet, slowly?" Garrett stood. "I don't suppose I get a shirt for this meeting?" "You'll get what we give you." But Varana gestured, and one of the soldiers handed him a gray tunic. He pulled it on. It fit well enough. They escorted him through corridors that managed to be both military and beautiful. Weapons mounted beside artwork. Training rooms visible through transparent walls, filled with soldiers moving through drills that looked lethal. Every face female. Every eye that tracked him held curiosity or suspicion, or both. "Popular guy," Garrett said. Sivara walked beside him, close enough that her shoulder occasionally brushed his. "You're the first human male most of them have seen. The first male of any species they've seen walking freely through command." "What about your own men?" Her jaw tightened. "They don't walk through command." The audience chamber was vast. Curved walls rose to a domed ceiling inlaid with precious metals. At the far end, on a raised platform, sat Matriarch Tazreen. She was older, silver fur marked with scars that told their own stories. She wore armor, not ceremonial but functional, like she might need to fight at any moment. Her eyes, pale gold, locked on Garrett as he approached. "Garrett Shaw," she said, her voice carried without effort. "Human, former Marine, dishonorably discharged for insubordination, currently employed in menial capacity at Research Installation 734. You've done your homework." "I do not bring unknowns into command." Tazreen leaned forward. "Why did you protect Commander Kelahn?" "She needed protecting." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have." Silence. Then Tazreen rose. She was tall, taller than Garrett by half a foot. She descended from the platform and circled him, studying. "Males of your species fight. We know this, but they fight for territory, for resources, for dominance. You fought for a stranger. You sacrificed tactical advantage. You bled." "I did." "Why?" Garrett met her eyes. "Because it was right. Right. Tazreen tasted the word. Commander Kelahn says you used unconventional tactics, that you improvised under pressure, that you neutralized 6 insurgents with limited resources while protecting a non-combatant. I got lucky. Luck is not tactics. Tazreen stopped in front of him. We are at war, human. Have been for 30 years, not with your people, with ourselves. 2 factions, same species, fighting over territory and ideology. Thousands dead, millions displaced, and we are no closer to resolution than when we started. Sorry to hear it. Our strategies are sound, our soldiers are well-trained, our equipment superior, yet we cannot end this conflict. Tazreen's tail lashed once. Do you know why? I'd guess you're too evenly matched, both sides using the same doctrine, same tactics. Stalemate. Precisely. Tazreen glanced at Sivara. Your human is perceptive. He's not my human. Isn't he? Something passed between them, some understanding Garrett couldn't read. Tazreen turned back to him. We need an outsider perspective, someone who thinks differently, someone who has proven capable of protecting what matters rather than simply destroying what doesn't. You want a consultant? We want a commander. The room went very quiet. Garrett looked at Sivara. Her ears were forward, alert, but her expression remained neutral. You're serious. Completely, Tazreen said. Joint task force, elements from both factions. Your objective, end the territorial conflict by any means necessary. You'll have full tactical authority and access to our resources. And if I say no? Then we return you to your maintenance duties and forget this conversation. But you won't say no. You sound confident? I am, because I've seen the footage. I've watched you throw yourself in front of gunfire for someone you'd known for minutes. I've studied your service record, the parts your military tried to hide. You don't walk away from fights that matter. Tazreen stepped closer. This fight matters. Our people are dying. Our worlds are burning. And we need someone who understands sacrifice without dominance. Garrett's mind raced. Command of alien forces, authority he'd never had, the chance to actually make a difference instead of fixing broken equipment. But something didn't add up. Why would your soldiers follow me? I'm male, human. Everything your society says isn't fit to lead. They'll follow you because I order it and because Commander Kelahn will serve as your liaison. Tazreen looked at Sivara. She volunteered. Sivara's tail curled tight. The matriarch required someone with first-hand knowledge of your capabilities. Is that the only reason? Her ears flattened. Does it matter? It did. More than it should. Garrett turned back to Tazreen. I want full tactical authority. No second-guessing, no political interference. If I'm doing this, I do it my way. Agreed. And I want to know what you're not telling me. Because there's something else going on here. Tazreen's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those gold eyes. Perceptive and intelligent. Good. You'll need both, she gestured. Commander Kelahn will brief you on the details. Training begins tomorrow. Dismissed. The audience was over. The guards escorted Garrett out, Sivara beside him. They walked in silence until they reached a quieter corridor. You volunteered, Garrett said. Yes. Why? Sivara stopped. Because you bled for me. Because you treated me like an equal when your culture and mine both say I should be dominant. Because, she looked away, because I need to understand what you are. I'm just a man. No, you're something else, something we don't have a word for. Her hand touched his chest, right over his heart, and I intend to find out what. The training facility occupied 5 levels beneath command, carved from bedrock and reinforced with alloys that made human steel look like paper. Garrett stood in the main briefing room, surrounded by faces that ranged from skeptical to openly hostile. 40 soldiers, all female, all veterans, zero interest in taking orders from him. This is your task force, Sivara said beside him. Elements from both factions, the best we have. They look thrilled. Give them reason not to be. She stepped forward, addressing the room. This is Commander Shaw. He has full tactical authority by order of Matriarch Tazreen. You will follow his orders as you would mine. A soldier near the front, dark fur with gray patches and a scar bisecting her left ear, stood. With respect, Commander Kelahn, why would we follow a male? Because I said so, Sivara's tail moved in a slow, deliberate arc. Questions? The scarred soldier sat, the room settled into wary silence. Garrett moved to the tactical display. Show me the current front lines. Sivara activated the hologram. Red and blue zones spread across a continental map, borders jagged where they met. Northern faction controls mountain territories. Southern faction holds the coast. The middle is contested. Both sides using the same strategies? Variations, but fundamentally yes. Garrett studied the display, rotating it. The soldiers watched. He could feel their attention, sharp and judging. You're fighting yourselves, he said finally. Same doctrine, same tactics, same equipment. Of course it's a stalemate. So how do we break it? The question came from a younger soldier, copper-furred with keen eyes. We don't fight like you. Garrett highlighted 3 positions. These are your forward bases? Yes. Pull back from 2 of them. The room erupted. Soldiers on their feet, voices raised. Retreat wasn't in their vocabulary. Sivara's ears flattened, but she let them vent. Garrett waited. When the noise subsided, he continued. You pull back, they advance, overextend. Then you hit them here and here while they're trying to hold territory they weren't expecting to take. Silence, different this time, thoughtful. The scarred soldier stood again. That's actually sound. It's also cowardly, another said. You do now, Garrett said, or you keep dying for another 30 years. Your choice. Sivara touched the display, expanding his marks. It could work. The timing would have to be perfect. I want to see them in action first, Garrett said. Live drills, today. The training grounds were vast. Garrett watched the first squad move through an urban combat simulation. They were good, fast, precise, coordinated, but predictable. Show me something they haven't seen, he said to Sivara. She raised an eyebrow. Meaning? Run the drill again, I'll play hostile. Her tail twitched. You against a full squad? Should I be worried? Yes, but she was smiling as she made the call. The simulation reset. The squad entered with that same clean precision. Garrett didn't engage where they expected. He went up, climbing through maintenance access they'd cleared but not secured, dropped behind them, took out 3 with training rounds before they realized he wasn't in front. The squad leader spun, weapon up. Garrett was already gone, using angles and verticality they hadn't considered. 2 more down. The remaining 4 adapted, but by then he'd repositioned again. When the simulation ended, the squad leader pulled off her helmet. Her expression was somewhere between impressed and annoyed. That was dirty. That was effective, Garrett corrected. Your doctrine assumes enemies fight the same way you do. What happens when they don't? We adapt. Show me. They ran it 5 more times. Each time, Garrett introduced variations. By the 5th run, they were adapting faster, covering angles they'd previously ignored. Sivara watched from the observation deck, Vorana beside her. He's making them angry, Vorana said. He's making them think. Sivara tracked his movements. He moved like water, never where they expected. How long did our training take? Years. He's rewriting their assumptions in hours. Down in the simulation, the squad leader approached Garrett. One more time, no restrictions. You sure? Full contact. Let's see what you can actually do. They ran it. This time the squad didn't follow doctrine. They improvised. It was messy, chaotic, but effective. Garrett found himself actually working. When the simulation ended, it was closer. Better, he said, again. They trained until the squad was dripping sweat. Garrett was in similar shape. The squad leader extended her hand. I'm Ratha, and I think I understand now. Understand what? Why the matriarch chose you. We've been fighting the same fight for so long, we forgot there were other ways. Other squads wanted their turn. Word had spread. Garrett ran them through variations, each tailored to different scenarios. He pushed them past their training. Hours blurred together. Between drills, Sivara brought him water, her fingers brushing his as she handed him the canteen. You're enjoying this, she said. I'm good at it. I noticed. Her ears swiveled toward the training ground. They respect you. They respect results. No, they respect you. She moved closer, voice dropping. So do I. The air between them shifted. Garrett became aware of her proximity. the heat radiating from her, the way her pupils had dilated. "Sivara!" "Commander Kelahn," Varana's voice cut across the moment. "The matriarch requires immediate briefing. Intelligence update." Sivara's tail lashed once. Frustration. But her expression smoothed as she turned. Acknowledged. The briefing room was smaller, more secure. Tazreen waited with 3 other officers. The tactical display showed something new. Sensor data. Ship movements at the edge of their system. "What am I looking at?" Garrett asked. Tazreen's expression was grim. The real war. She expanded the display. Dozens of contacts moving in formation. Ships, but not like anything in their fleet. Bigger, different configurations. "Long-range sensors detected them 6 months ago," Tazreen said. "They'll reach our system in 8 weeks. Garrett's stomach dropped. "You've known for 6 months." "Yes, and you're still fighting each other." "We were until you." Tazreen looked at Sivara. "Tell him." Sivara's ears flattened. "The territorial war isn't organic. Someone has been supplying both sides, weapons, intelligence, tactical data, keeping us balanced, keeping us fighting." "Keeping you weak," Garrett finished. "Precisely." She pulled up intercepted communications. "We found evidence 3 weeks ago, transmissions from unknown sources to insurgent cells, including the one that attacked my facility." The pieces clicked into place. "They wanted you weak when they arrived." "Yes, but then you protected me, showed capabilities they didn't expect, and the matriarch saw an opportunity." Garrett looked at Tazreen. "This was never about ending a civil war. It was about both. Unite our factions, yes, but more importantly, teach us to fight like you, unpredictably, adaptively, because when those ships arrive, doctrine won't save us." Tazreen's gaze was steady. "We need you to prepare us for a war we've never fought, against an enemy we don't understand, in 8 weeks. That's not enough time. It's all we have." Garrett looked at the sensor data at the approaching fleet. At Sivara, whose hand had somehow found his arm, fingers tight. "There's something else," he said, "something you're still not telling me." Sivara's grip tightened. Her eyes met Tazreen's. Some silent communication passed between them. "Tell him," Tazreen said. Sivara's tail curled around her own leg. "The matriarch ordered me to use any means necessary to secure your cooperation, including seduction." Her ears were completely flat now. "But that's not... what happened between us wasn't." She struggled. "I was following orders initially. But then you kissed me and came back for me and showed me that everything I believed about males was wrong. And now I don't know what's orders and what's real, except I know I'd take another round for you without hesitation, and that terrifies me." The confession hung in the air, raw, honest. Garrett should have been angry, should have felt manipulated. Instead, he thought about her tail wrapping around his wrist, the way she'd positioned herself between him and danger. "Figure it out later," he said. "Right now we have 8 weeks to save your world." Sivara's hand tightened on his arm. The joint operation launched at dawn. Garrett stood in the command transport, watching tactical feeds from 40 different perspectives. Sivara beside him, close enough that her tail occasionally brushed his leg when the transport banked. "Northern forces report ready," Varana said from the communication station. "Southern forces confirm position." First time in 30 years, both factions coordinated an assault. First time they trusted each other enough to turn their backs. Garrett had spent 3 weeks making it happen. Joint training, shared intelligence, breaking down decades of hatred, one drill at a time. Now came the test. "Ratha's team is in position," Sivara said, highlighting their location on the tactical display. "Insurgent stronghold, 3 kilometers ahead." The stronghold was built into a mountain, natural defenses augmented with stolen military technology. Intelligence suggested the external threat's advance elements were using it as a coordination hub. Take it, and they'd disrupt the enemy's information network. "Execute Phase 1, Garrett said. On the display, Northern forces pulled back from their forward positions, exactly as he'd taught them. The insurgents, watching through their own sensors, saw retreat. They advanced, eager to claim territory. "They're taking the bait," Varana reported. "How long until they're overextended?" 12 minutes. Garrett watched the feeds. The insurgents moved with confidence, pushing into positions the northern forces had abandoned, good soldiers following bad intelligence. Phase 2, Mark. Southern forces struck from angles the insurgents hadn't considered. The tactical display lit up with engagement markers. What had been an advance became a trap. Northern forces converge, Garrett ordered. Cut off their retreat. It was surgical, clean. The insurgents realized too late they'd been herded, manipulated, outmaneuvered. Within minutes, their forward elements were surrounded. Strongholds launching reinforcements, Sivara said, gunships, heavy armor. Right on schedule. Garrett switched to Rotha's feed. Her team was positioned on the high ground, hidden in terrain the insurgents thought was impassable. Rotha, you're active. Copy that, Commander, engaging. Rotha's team opened fire. Anti-armor rounds took out the lead gunship. The convoy scattered exactly as predicted, straight into the kill zone where Southern forces waited. Sivara's hand found his arm, not restraining, just contact. Her ears were forward, alert, tracking every feed simultaneously. They're collapsing faster than projected. They're fighting the last war. We're fighting this one. The stronghold's defensive fire intensified. Garrett studied the pattern. There, third tower, eastern approach, that's their command center. How can you tell? They're protecting it harder than the others. Vorana, redirect artillery support. I want that tower suppressed, not destroyed. We need whatever intelligence is inside. Adjusting fire mission. The battle evolved. What the insurgents expected to be a grinding siege became a coordinated dismantling of their defenses. Every time they adapted, Garrett had already moved to the next phase. This is extraordinary. Tazreen's voice came through command channel. She was watching from orbit. Minimal casualties on both sides. It's working, Sivara said quietly, meant for Garrett alone. The stronghold's shields failed. Breaching teams moved in, northern and southern forces side by side. Garrett watched through their helmet feeds as they cleared corridors with the adaptive tactics he'd taught them. Then Rotha's feed showed something that made Garrett's blood freeze. Contact Eastern Corridor, these aren't insurgents. The hostiles on her feed were different. Taller, heavily armored, weapons that didn't match any known technology. They moved with precision that suggested professional military. External threat advance team, Sivara said, ears flat. They're already here. All teams adjust for unknown hostiles, Garrett ordered. Capture priority. We need intelligence. The battle shifted. The external forces fought differently than the insurgents, but they fought like Sivara's people, with doctrine, with rigid tactics. And Garrett's teams had spent 3 weeks learning to counter exactly that. Rotha's pinned down, Vorana reported. Heavy fire, can't advance. Garrett studied the feed. Rotha's team was caught in a kill zone. Standard response would be to pull back, regroup, but there wasn't time. The external forces were destroying equipment, purging data. I'm going in, Garrett said. Absolutely not, Sivara said. Your command, you stay here. Command is useless if we lose that intelligence. Then I'm coming with you. I'm your liaison. That means where you go, I go. Her tail lashed. And if you think I'm letting you run into gunfire without me after watching you nearly die once, you're insane. Their eyes met. Garrett saw determination there, and something else. Something that had been building since that first kiss. Fine, but you follow my lead. Wouldn't dream of anything else. They dropped from the command transport via rappel line, hitting the stronghold's outer wall at speed. Sivara moved beside him, weapon ready, all grace and deadly efficiency. They breached through a maintenance access Garrett had identified on the tactical display. Inside was chaos. Smoke, emergency lighting, the sharp smell of discharged weapons. Garrett moved through it like he belonged, Sivara matching his pace. They reached Rotha's position within minutes. Commander, Rotha said, surprise evident, you shouldn't be here. Probably not. Where are they? Command center, 2 levels up. They've got heavy weapons covering the main approach. Then we don't use the main approach. Garrett led them through maintenance shafts using the stronghold's own structure against its defenders. They emerged behind the external force's position. Garrett signaled 3 fingers, then 1. Sivara's ears swiveled in acknowledgement. They hit fast. The external forces hadn't expected an attack from that angle. Garrett took the first 2. Sivara dropped another 3 with shots that proved her aim was as good as her tactical mind. The last hostile turned, weapon coming up. Garrett's rifle clicked empty. Sivara threw herself forward, slamming into Garrett, bearing him to the ground as rounds tore through the space where he'd been standing. She rolled, fired from prone, and the hostile went down. For a moment they lay there, Sivara on top of him, breathing hard, green eyes wide, blood on her shoulder where a round had grazed her. "You're hit," Garrett said. "Flesh wound. You're intact. Good trade." But she didn't move, her weight pressed against him, her breath warm on his face. "I told you I'd take a round for you." "You didn't have to prove it." "Yes, I did." Her hand came up, touching his face. "Because what I feel isn't orders. It was never orders, and I need you to understand that." "Sivara, I know this is terrible timing. I know we're in the middle of a combat zone." Her ears flattened. "But I've spent 30 years believing males were incapable of what you do every day, and I can't go another moment without telling you that you've destroyed everything I thought I knew." Garrett reached up, his hand cupping the back of her head, fingers threading through copper fur. Terrible timing. "The worst." He pulled her down anyway. Kissed her properly this time, not shock or desperation, but intent. She made a sound low in her throat, her tail wrapping around his leg, and kissed him back like she'd been waiting for permission. "Commander," Rotha's voice came through comms, carefully neutral. "Command center is secure. You might want to see what we found." They broke apart. Sivara's pupils were fully dilated, her breathing unsteady. She stood first, offered him her hand, pulled him up. Professional. Except her tail stayed curled around his wrist. The command center was a mess of destroyed equipment and captured personnel, but one console remained active, data streaming across holographic displays. "It's a countdown," Varana said. She'd joined the ground team. "The external fleet. They're not arriving in 8 weeks. "How long?" Garrett asked. 72 hours. The room went silent. Sivara's hand tightened on his. 3 days. "To prepare for an invasion we barely understand." Garrett studied the data. Fleet composition, approach vectors, weapons signatures. "We need this back to command, now." "Extraction is waiting," Rotha said. They moved fast, securing the intelligence, evacuating wounded. The joint forces held the stronghold, both factions working together like they'd been doing it for years instead of weeks. In the transport back to command, Garrett sat with Sivara in the rear compartment. She'd let the medic treat her shoulder, but she stayed close to him, her tail wrapped around his wrist. 3 days, she said quietly. "Is it enough?" "It has to be." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have." Garrett looked at her. "But we've got something they don't expect: unity, adaptability, and a stubborn refusal to fight the way we're supposed to." Her hand found his face again, thumb brushing his cheekbone. "And you. We have you." "We have each other." Tazreen's voice came through comms. "All forces, return to command, emergency council in 2 hours. Shaw, I hope you're ready to earn that authority I gave you." Garrett looked at the data streaming across his tactical display, at the approaching fleet, at Sivara watching him with faith he wasn't sure he deserved. "Ready or not," he said, "here they come." The war room held every military leader from both factions. Garrett stood at the center, holographic displays showing the approaching fleet. 72 hours, he said. 3 days to prepare for an enemy that's been planning this for months. Matriarch Hestra leaned forward. "Our fleets combined barely match half their tonnage. How do we fight this?" "We don't fight their fight, we fight ours." Garrett expanded the display. "They expect divided forces, outdated tactics. We give them none of that." "Explain," Tazreen said. Garrett outlined the strategy: asymmetric warfare, hit-and-run tactics, using local space knowledge against an enemy with only sensor data. Every advantage humanity had used against superior forces, adapted for space. The commanders listened, some nodded, others looked skeptical. "This requires perfect coordination," Hestrel said, "between factions that were killing each other a month ago." "You coordinated perfectly at the stronghold." "The stronghold was one battle. This is everything." "Then make everything count." You've spent 30 years proving you can fight each other. Spend 3 days proving you can fight together. Silence, then Hestral stood. Southern forces will follow this plan. Northern forces concur. The room emptied. Sivara stayed beside Garrett. You convinced them, she said. I gave them a chance. Garrett studied the fleet positions. Now comes the hard part. Her tail wrapped around his wrist. We won't fail, not with you leading. Garrett turned to face her. They were alone, displays casting blue light across her features. Sivara, if this goes wrong... It won't. She kissed him, soft this time, deeper. When she pulled back, her eyes held certainty. So, the door remained closed. Privacy was rare. Garrett's hands found her waist, pulling her closer. We should be planning, he said. We have planned, her tail tightened, and I've waited weeks to have you alone. She kissed him again. Garrett lifted her onto the tactical table, her legs wrapping around his waist. Her hands worked at his uniform. He found the seals on her jacket. The door chimed. They froze. Sivara's ears swiveled. Commander Kelahn, Vorana's voice came through. The matriarch requires your presence, both of you. Sivara dropped her head to Garrett's shoulder. Terrible timing! They straightened uniforms. Sivara's tail flicked with frustration. Tazreen waited with Hestral. We have a problem. The external fleet changed course. They're arriving sooner. How much sooner? Garrett asked. 36 hours. Half the time meant half the preparation. They know we're unified. So they're adapting, Sivara said. Which means we adapt faster. Garrett turned to the commanders. New plan, we go to them. That's suicide, Hestral said. Not if we're smart. Garrett pulled up trajectories. They're committed to this approach. We seed this corridor with mines, debris, force them to slow. Then we hit them in waves, small, fast ships that strike and fall back. Guerrilla warfare in space, Tazreen said. The commanders studied the plan. It could work, Hestral said finally. The fleets mobilized within hours. Garrett commanded from the flagship, Sivara coordinating communications. The external fleet entered the corridor at high speed. They didn't expect the minefield. Didn't expect debris clouds forcing them to slow. All wings engage, Garrett ordered. The attack came from every angle. Fast frigates launched from hidden positions, firing and vanishing. Larger ships provided covering fire, then retreated. It was controlled chaos. The external fleet tried to adapt, but every time they adjusted, Garrett had already moved to counter. Their formation is breaking, Vorana reported. Casualties mounting. Don't let up. Ratha, take your wing through Section 7. The battle raged for hours, ships dancing through space, weapons fire painting the void. Garrett tracked it all. Then the external fleet's flagship hailed them. They're requesting parley, Sivara said. Garrett studied the display. The enemy was damaged, but not destroyed. They could still fight. Accept it, Garrett said. The flagship commander appeared, tall, insectoid, compound eyes reflecting light. You fight unlike any species we have encountered. We're full of surprises, Garrett said. Indeed, we came expecting easy conquest. Instead, we find unity, adaptation. You have earned our respect. Interesting way to show it, Sivara said, invading with a battle fleet. We test potential allies through conflict. Those who fail are conquered. Those who succeed are offered partnership. Partnership, Tazreen said, joining the channel, after you manipulated our civil war. A test of resilience. You passed, thanks to this one. The commander focused on Garrett, a human. We did not account for human involvement. We offer a treaty, technology exchange, trade agreements, mutual defense. Hestral appeared, and if we refuse, then we finish this battle or you accept and both peoples benefit. Garrett looked at Tazreen, at Hestral. Your call, this is your world. Tazreen's expression was thoughtful. Because of you, we have the strength to choose. She turned to the commander. We accept, pending negotiations. Agreed. The channel closed. Then someone started clapping, others joined. The bridge erupted in celebration. Sivara turned to Garrett. You did it. We did it. No, this was you. She stepped closer. Your tactics, your leadership. Garrett pulled her close. I had good motivation. Did you? You. She kissed him, tail wrapping around him. The bridge erupted in fresh cheers. Tazreen approached. "Commander Shaw, you have our gratitude. Just did what needed doing. No, you forced us to reconsider 3,000 years of assumptions." Later, in Sivara's quarters, they finally had privacy. She sealed the door. "No interruptions this time," she said. "Promise?" "I disabled the comm." She crossed to him. "You're mine for the next 8 hours." They came together with heat that had been building since that first kiss. Garrett traced patterns in her fur, learned the sounds she made. She explored him with equal intensity, tail wrapping around him. They moved to the bed. She straddled him, green eyes locked on his. "I love you," she said. "I know it's fast, but I don't care." Garrett pulled her down. "I love you too?" They made love with intensity, born from nearly losing each other. When they finally collapsed together, Sivara's tail remained wrapped around his leg. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we build something new." "And us?" Garrett kissed her forehead. "Us, we figure out together, just you and me." "I like that plan." "Good, because you're stuck with me." Her tail tightened. "Promise?" "Promise." Outside, fleets held position. Former enemies, now allies. The external fleet's envoy ship approached with treaties that would reshape power across systems. Humanity's name would spread. The species that thought differently. But inside Sivara's quarters, none of that mattered. Garrett held her close, her breathing steady, tail wrapped possessively around him. They'd found each other across species and culture. Two people who'd learned that strength wasn't about dominance, but about knowing when to shield someone and when to let them shield you. Sivara stirred, looking up at him. "Stay with me." "Always." "I mean it. Don't go back. Stay here. Help us build this alliance." Garrett considered. Earth had never felt like home. He'd always been the outsider. But here, in Sivara's arms, with a unified fleet proving change was possible, this felt right. "I'll stay," he said, "on one condition." Her ears perked. "What condition?" "You teach me your language. Tired of not knowing what everyone's saying." She laughed, rich and warm. "Deal, though most of what they say is complimentary." "Most? Some think you're trouble." "Are they wrong?" "No," she kissed him, slow and deep. "But you're the best kind of trouble." They held each other as artificial night fell, as crews celebrated together, as an envoy prepared treaties. They held each other and knew that whatever came next, they'd face it together. Two species, two people. One future built on the truth that sometimes the universe needs someone willing to throw themselves in front of gunfire for a stranger. And sometimes that stranger comes back with an offer no one expected. Not conquest or submission, but partnership, equality, love. Garrett Shaw had shielded Sivara Kelahn from gunfire. Days later, her people returned with an offer no human expected. A chance to lead, to change everything, to prove that humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology or firepower, but the simple, stubborn refusal to accept that things had to stay the way they'd always been. In the morning, they'd face the envoys. They'd negotiate treaties, coordinate fleets, build something unprecedented. But for now, in the quiet darkness of Sivara's quarters, they simply held each other. Her tail wrapped around him like she'd never let go. His hand traced patterns in her fur, like he was memorizing her. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For coming back for me, for showing us there was another way, for loving me." Garrett kissed the top of her head, breathing in her scent. "Thank you for coming back for me first." Outside, stars wheeled overhead. 3 fleets maintained formation, northern, southern, and external, proof that even the deepest divisions could be bridged with the right catalyst. That catalyst had been one human male who refused to accept that protection required dominance, that sacrifice required superiority, that love required sameness. He'd simply done what was right, and in doing so he'd changed 2 worlds. Sivara's breathing deepened, sleep claiming her. Garrett stayed awake longer, watching her in the dim light. Her ears twitched in dreams. Her tail remained wrapped around his leg, even in sleep. Possessive, protective. His. He'd been dishonorably discharged for insubordination. Too stubborn, too unwilling to follow doctrine, too quick to challenge authority. Earth had seen him as a problem. But here that same stubbornness had saved a world. That same refusal to accept the status quo had united factions and forged alliances. What humanity saw as flaws, Sivar's people recognized as strengths. Maybe that was the real lesson, that sometimes the misfits, the troublemakers, the ones who didn't fit, they were exactly what the universe needed. Not despite their differences, but because of them. Garrett finally let sleep take him, Sivara warm in his arms, her tail his anchor. Tomorrow would bring challenges, but they'd face them together, always together. And that was enough.